a member of the media was trying to explain this reporter from TVB. Now, this is a police press briefing. We have our own arrangements. If you keep interrupting us, then we cannot proceed. Well, unexpectedly, some journalists came out and disrupted our PC, so we had no choice but to suspend it. Now, I hand over the floor to Mr. Z. Can you please, Hong Kong EJ reporter, can you stop? No, we cannot proceed if you don't stop. Can you please shut up? You keep interrupting our speakers. Can you go directly into the Q&A session? I have no choice but to ask you to leave if you go on like this. Well, a reporter was reading our statement. This reporter from Mingpao, please. Because there were similar practices in the past, and how come this time is different? Can you allow me a few minutes? Can you allow the speakers to finish first? Go along. Well, we have had dozens of 4 p.m. police press briefings since August. This is a communication channel between the police and the media. Usually, in the first half of the PC, we would give an account of some clarifications and also explanation to the public. And usually, in the second half of the PC, we have a Q&A session. The PC is usually covered live by the media. Whether we can operate smoothly depends on mutual respect. And we can only communicate when there is order, and this is a reciprocal situation. We don't want the PC to be hijacked by the media. And if the media have questions, we'll give you sufficient time in the second half of the meeting to ask questions. This reporter from Mingpo, please allow Mr. Zhe to finish first. If reporters have something to state, they can find an appropriate forum outside the PC. Well, the purpose of police PCs is to allow reporters to ask questions, and is also an important means. By means of live broadcast, we can let the public understand police work. When you disrupt our PC, you are depriving the whole community of the right to have access to information from the police, and we like to express regret for the disruption today.
Treat the police and the general public. Through this press conference, we disseminate some key information and make clarification before holding a Q&A section for reporters. Different media will live stream our press conference on TV and online. In order for this press conference to function well, a good discipline is crucial. We certainly object to any acts calculated to interrupt our speech or hijack this press conference. If a reporter has a question, he or she can raise it during the Q&A section. And if a particular organization has to raise some concern, they can make use of proper channels of communications to bring the matters to our attention. Interrupting the press conference deprives the citizens of the right to access to our information. We express deep regret for the interruption by individual reporters. 嚟緊嘅時間呢，我哋頭先個記者會呢係去到，我會將時間交俾Madam Zhang呢講解關於。
I'll give the floor to Madam Zhang to explain matters related to our police dogs. Yes, I think Mr. Zhe already said that we will have a Q&A session. This reporter from Hong Kong EJ, please do not disrupt the PC. No, it is our time. Madam Zhang, please go on. Thank you. On the 21st of October 2019, it was suspected that our police dog was affected by tear gas. I will now give you an account of what happened that evening, and if you have questions, please leave until the Q&A session, and I will try my best to answer your questions. On the 21st of October 2019, the dog handler and police dog involved were deployed to provide assistance at Yunnan Police Station. When they arrived at Yunnan Police Station, they were assigned to keep watch at the main entrance to the report room of the police station. Around 9 p.m., some colleagues saw around 100 protesters walking towards the Yunnan Police Station. Because the situation warranted, the dog handler and the dog went with the PTU in a clearance operation, and then the dog had to protect the rear section of the PTU and to keep watch over the arrested persons when needed and to protect police officers. When the team arrived at Fengcheng Road, a male was arrested, and when the team was about to call a police vehicle to take the arrested person and the team away, because a few major trunk roads were already blocked, and therefore the police vehicle could not make it. Eventually, the team decided to walk back to Yunnan Police Station. When they reached Yunnan Kaite, that is the section between Castle Picaro and Yunnan, suddenly 2 petrol bombs were hurled towards the back of the team, and then 2 petrol bombs exploded and burned 30 meters away from the dog, and he was affected by the fire and light, and the dog will not walk on. The dog handler at once pacified the dog. After about half a minute, the dog resumed normal, and then it was willing to walk back to Yunnan. And that evening, the dog was allowed to rest and be on standby inside the station. During the clearing operation, about 43 rounds of tear gas were fired, and then the dog did not show any sign, any abnormal sign, and there was no signs such as sneezing or scratching. And on the 24th of October 2019, the dog was examined by government vet and was confirmed to be in normal condition.
I now hand it back to Mr. Chair. Allow me to summarize. Whenever the rioters commit destruction and disturb social order, the police are duty-bound to stop them. However, when the police arrive to disperse some of the masked rioters and their supporters, and without any reason, they will heckle and cuss at and assault police officers and hurling random objects at them. Please ask yourself, when these rioters are setting fire, vandalizing and assaulting people, if the police won't stop them, who would you expect this organization to take care of them? In the face of a violent assault at the protest scenes, when the policemen even off duty, they were subject to vicious attack and harassment. And even when they seek legal avenues to apply for an interim injunction to protect their privacy, they actually led to criticism and smearing. In a civilized modern society, anyone should not, due to their identity and occupation, they will be doxxed, bullied, cursed at, and insulted. The police are happy to accept all kinds of rational criticism based on facts and will promise to review. But the top priority is to stop the violence. I hope that all sectors of society return to reason and should not support the rioters due to their political standing and would blindly tolerate the violence. Now recap.
First week of social unrest. As rioters went on a rampage across Kowloon over the weekend. What began as an unauthorized assembly in Tsim Sha Tsui descended into chaos as rioters assault police officers and built barricades with roadside crash and railings. As the night fell, riotous violence intensified and extended to various districts in Kowloon, like Sam Shui Po, Mong Kok, and Yau Ma Tei. Masked rioters inflicted extensive damage to public properties and transport facilities. They vandalized shops, set fires to buildings, hurled petrol bombs at police officers and into MTR stations. Worst of all, there were at least 3 cases of mass mobs taking the law into their own hands and attacking innocent citizens who held different views to theirs. Such brutal attacks have left the victims with bloody injuries. The police strongly condemn all acts of violence and will bring all offenders to justice. There are several key developments about our ongoing operations I would like to highlight in this speech. Firstly, High Court has granted an interim injunction order to restrain doxing and harassment against police officers and their families. As a matter of fact, so far, over 2,600 police officers and their family members have had their personal data leaked unlawfully and online. Some of these victims have received a large amount of nuisance calls and even death threats as a result. This injunction order bans people from unlawfully and willfully conducting acts like publishing the personal data of police officers and their families without consent, as well as intimidation and harassment. This injunction does not target reporters who are carrying out professional and lawful reporting. If you are a reporter conducting fair and lawful journalism, rest assured that you will not be affected by this injunction. Secondly, we understand public concern about identification of frontline officers. We have rolled out a new policy on operational call signs. I believe you all have seen our frontline officers wearing white tags on their vest over the weekend. These white tags contain operational call signs that can be used to identify individual officers. The call signs are unique and state the officers' formations and postings. It has been our common practice that we use this call sign to identify officers among ourselves within a police tactical unit platoon, for example. If anyone feels aggrieved by a particular police officer, they may make a report to the capo with reference to this unique operational call sign. Our new policy is to strike a fair balance between protection of our officers against doxing and proper identification of officers. Thirdly, I must clarify that some of our frontline officers wear face masks during operation, not because they want to hide their identity. The face masks are actually protective gears. There are instances when our officers had their teeth broken and lips cut by metal balls, fired by slingshots. And our officers had also suffered serious burns from corrosive fluid attacks of rioters. Our management will do all what we can do to provide protective gear for our frontline officers to protect their safety and to guard against the escalating violence of the rioters. Fourthly, we are also aware of the concern about the use of colored water of our specialized crowd management vehicles. We must clarify that the colored water does not have any corrosive chemicals, as online rumors claim. We can confirm that colored water is not harmful for human health. The discomfort caused by PAVA and colored water is only temporary. The solution can be washed away by a large amount of water. Now I'll give you a brief update on arrest figure. Since last Monday, we have arrested 206 people, consisting of 148 males and 58 females, aged between 12 and 63 years old. Offences include unlawful assembly, possession of offensive weapons, criminal damage, arson, and wounding. It is both upsetting and alarming to see rioters wreak havoc to our society and push Hong Kong's core values, including the rule of law, to the brink of total collapse. When these rioters are wrecking shops, setting buildings on fires, and hurling petrol bombs in residential neighborhoods, we police officers are duty-bound to respond and contain the situation. No matter how horrible the situation, our officers still have to stand at the forefront to protect Hong Kong. Not only do they suffer the threat of physical attack by rioters, but they also face the huge psychological pressure from doxing and harassment to their family members. No civilized society tolerates these physical and psychological violence. We sincerely appeal to every member of the public to revert to rational and peaceful means of expression. Thank you. 而家係發問時間可以。
好 ，open to for questioning. Speaker of mic.
Now.
Good afternoon. Mr. Tse talked about mutual respect. Reporters from my company, I'm from Now TV. Well, all journalists have received pepper spray, held at gunpoint and shoved, and even a cameraman, he is over 60, he was shoved by riot police. Is that mutual respect? We've heard for 4 months that you would receive criticisms. Well, did you have to push the reporter away so rudely? And there was no need to disrupt or suspend the police officer. We gave you ample time to improve on yourselves. Yesterday, you talked about time to familiarize with the anti-facial covering law. Why was that some police officers interpret the law himself? And yesterday, reporter from RTHK had her mask removed by your police officers, and at our street there were only reporters. Why was there the need to use pepper spray and to fire tear gas? And on the internet, we saw clips that the new tear gas would melt into the road surface and could not be removed. I'd like to know whether the new tear gas you use are more lethal. And there are rumors that Mr. Lau Yik-sing may leave within this week. I think the confrontations are still going on. Why should he leave now? And for controversial issues that involve Mr. Lau after he has left, how can we take him to task? You talked about colleagues during discharge of duty, removing the mask of reporters. I will take this question later. I'll give the floor to Mr. Wong to take question about tear gas. You asked about tear gas melted on the road and the difference between the new and old types of tear gas. For the new tear gas we're using, made by a different manufacturer, as I said, it's not that we just procure them. We have carried out trials to ensure that the effect is more or less the same and that they can be effective in achieving our operational objective. And as for the tear gas around melting on the road, I think we have to sort out the facts too. We don't know whether there were already chemicals on the road beforehand. I think you have to understand that the police use force because of violent clashes made by the rioters. They did not just hurt ourselves, but reporters and civilians. They might use chemicals. They set up traps to harm our colleagues. Our officers may get hurt as a result. I can't rule the possibility that if there were already chemicals on the road, they might have chemical reaction with our tear gas. You asked whether the new batch of tear gas might have some different effect. Rest assured, when we procure different batches of tear gas, we do not just buy them. After procurement, we will carry out various tests and will also conduct studies in the market before we use them. So you have to understand that tear gas and tear smoke will, of course, cause such effects. Now, you're very concerned. Now, for professional journalists, you should stay away from us. You should keep a safe distance from us so that we can both work smoothly. Your first question, express your views before you went on to talk about what happened in Kowloon yesterday. I'll not repeat what I said when we resumed about the point about mutual respect. Can you allow me to finish first? This is not the first time we hold a police PC. We have been holding PCs for more than 40 days. The usual arrangement is for us to make statements first before you ask questions. That lady, probably a journalist, although I don't know her, she did not follow our usual order. I don't think that behavior is mutual respect. I will not repeat what I already said after we resumed. You asked a series of questions. I must clarify 2 points. Number one, yesterday on the TV and from your question asked just now about privileges of journalists. Now, your question can be split into 2 parts. First is about the law itself, and second, the situation yesterday. The law is very clear. The word exemption is not correct. Under the law, there is no exemption or privilege, so to speak, rather defense. Under the anti-mask law, well, in Clause 3, public activity. Under this clause, there are several defenses, and let me read it out. When that person is carrying out a professional employment and is carrying out an activity under the profession or employment facial covering use for protection. This is a defense, and this applies to a professional journalist carrying out something in keeping with his profession. Under that circumstance, this clause applies to him, but that doesn't mean that a journalist would not be stopped and searched. Under the clause, if there is a legitimate defense, a journalist wearing a face mask will not be prosecuted if he is carrying out his professional duty. So under the law, we have the power to stop and search a journalist to confirm his identity. And we have to confirm whether he is really doing journalist work, and whether let me finish this part about the law before I talked about the situation yesterday, and also the purpose of using the facial covering is in keeping with what is laid down in the law, and this will help us to confirm whether he is entitled to the defense given in the law. So individuals may claim that they have privilege or exemption. This is a wrong assertion. And the part about police officer removing the face mask of a reporter. We've said many times that if a reporter is wearing a press vest, or if he's wearing a helmet showing that he's a press, and if he is doing professional press work, there is no reason for our officers to stop him and check him. If, without prior warning or request, a police officer removes the face mask of a reporter, such a behavior is undesirable. I'm sure the effect would be much better if there was prior communication, because under Clause 5, the police officer will have to request the person to remove his face mask, and if he refuses to do so, then the police officer will remove it for him. So, referring to the footage you referred to, yes, the situation is undesirable. But it was just a snapshot. We don't have the context of the event, so I cannot confirm whether the officer concerned had asked the officer or the reporter to remove it. I saw another video clip where reporter promised to remove the face mask himself, and as a result, police officers didn't have to do it for him. So for the footage you mentioned, I didn't know. I don't know the context, and if the reporter himself felt insulted or offended, he can make a complaint to CAPO, and it will be dealt with in a fair manner. From what we saw on the footage, yes, it was not desirable, but we have to understand the whole context before we can say further.
Speaker not on microphone. Like I said earlier, as it goes both ways. Well, I've answered plenty of questions from you for over almost 5 months in such a riotous environment. Our relation with the press, well, we've been in touch, we know each other for quite a few years, and for the news gathering arrangements and coordination, the police have put a lot of effort. And in the context of the riot, whether for the police or the press or even the media liaison team, in such a chaotic situation, the coordination have room for improvement. Since June, we have met the Press Association several times, and for the challenges as been told by the journalists and the operational difficulty at the scene, for example, a point-blank distance between the police and the press, and when making arrests for the rioters, they might pretend imposing at rioters or use them as cover. And this has been relayed in the past. We know that and after a candid exchange, we see we can address some of the problems, especially for the close distance, where last time in Mongkok, our people could barely move. While this situation has improved, but it's still happening. We had never come across such a violent situation before. Candid communication and alerting each other, whether our frontline officers and the frontline journalists, and how to achieve mutual respect and cooperation. That is expected to be continuous. As for what you said, the police have been taking corresponding action. As for the behavior of individual journalists and frontline officers, which led rise to confrontation and incidents, I definitely advise the journalists must file a report with CAPO. Under this mechanism, we will follow up the matter fairly and impartially. We see there are shortcomings with our colleague, and we will make improvements. And for your third question, as for Deputy Commissioner Lau, and back in 9th of August, have been appointed at this Deputy Commissioner's special duty. So that's a supernumerary post mainly to assist the Commissioner in dealing with large-scale public events and to plan major operations. For example, the 70th anniversary, national anniversary, which had concluded. And for the appointment is 3 months, 3 plus 3. Now we have passed the first 3 months period. Well, since we see improvement from the previous 3 months, we don't see the need to extending the appointment. And that's also the personal wishes of Mr. Lau. Now you have asked this question, I would like to thank Mr. Lau for the contribution over the 3 months and wish him happy retirement. TVB. Speaker on the microphone. Oh, the 40 plus press briefings. We've heard from the police. Could you please use the microphone because the interpreter will need to rely on the microphone. Please hand him a microphone, please. Over the past 4 months, after so many press briefings, we heard plenty of times the police said that the frontline and the press communication had much to be desired and you're working on it. And since the first time you said it, a few months had passed. So how do you brief your frontline? As of yesterday, we still see some regrettable incidents happening. Well, you're not briefing your frontline officers enough, or they won't listen to the superiors. And for the operational call sign, and yesterday, protest, we see some of the officers were assigned operational call sign, and some of the plainclothes officers did not carry their call sign. You claim that you will implement in phases, so what is the timetable? Would you have full implementation after a few months? I'll have Mr. Wong take the first question. Okay, thank you for your question. As for the operational call signs, I would like to explain that the operational call sign have the same function as the identification number. Well, everyone's operational call sign is unique, so they achieve the same effect of locating their particular officer. Speaker of mine. So in operation, we have been reviewing how should we go about. That's why we're trying to do better. Please understand why we're targeting that insist the police officers must show their identification number and or the call sign. When the officers are not able to produce it or covered by the protective gear, and yet you have to magnify it. So please think, when you're working for 10 or 12-hour shifts, and then you have to worry that family members being doxxed, when the children, something else may occur, and they're worried about going and leaving home, and yet they're still on duty. So if you think in their shoes, how you cope with this problem. For this operational call sign achieve the effect, so we're definitely working on it. If you can insist on magnifying it and accusing it of failing this or that, please understand the level of stress suffered by the fellow officers and how can we help them. For every approach, it's not that it would happen overnight. We have to think about how do we implement this smoothly and holistically in phases. It's not, remember, as last said, it's a unique call sign. We can't just randomly assign a call sign. We have a problem is that there have been doxing online that have been hurting our colleagues. And please give strength to the police forces to do something for Hong Kong. Support is more vital than picking on why the police not failing to do that. Please be assured the management side will alert, remind the front lines of police to work, make it better through communications or different arrangements to let them understand our intention. Do you have a timetable of when to all the officers in the force will carry that? They'll be working 12-hour shifts and institute extra mechanism. Well, you'd expect things to be slower than ordinary times. Well, let's say, I can't say like in 3 months or 1 month. I can only tell you that since we deal with the daily incidents while you need to implement this. For us to do a new mechanism, it will take time. I can will try our best, but I can't promise you that it will be fully on board within 1 month or 3 months. It depends how we can cooperate. Operation cost is just the same as the identification number. These are both unique. So there's nothing about covering up per se. So by my explanation, I hope that you get a better idea of the call sign. I also understand our difficulty. And so to understand, especially the frontline officers while dealing violent confrontations, not only they have to commit themselves fully to the job, and every second they need to care and miss their family members and whether they will be doxed. They're worried about whether children will need to subject to other things. I suppose that no one would like to be in this situation. It's time to stop all kinds of violence. It's time to stop the smear of the police, and it's time to stop all the provocation of police officers and to work with the rule of law and hope that Hong Kong can return back to normal.
Mr. Xi, returning to your first question, I don't believe that our colleagues are not listening to us, and I don't agree that we're not giving sufficient briefing to our colleagues. Given that this is such a big organization, it's just like your industry, and I don't think we can, or we've asked the press to not to be that close to us. You have yet to follow that request. In fact, we have been repeatedly said to our colleagues the details of the law. But then police officers, when at work, are not just faced with the behavior of an individual reporter. Rather, they might be facing a life-threatening situation. As mentioned earlier, rioters might choose to use the press as their shield. This has been shown on video, and they might use they might dress as reporters to hide their real identity. And please bear with me. I'd like to remind you once again that I'm sure most of our colleagues would not target reporters. What they want is to stop violence from rioters in chaos. So reporters should find a safe place to position themselves, and please do not be used by the rioters. There can be good communication between the media and the police. I've seen many situations where there was good communication and things were smooth. Even the media liaison team, which started a few years ago, they were formed so as to lower the possibility of conflicts between the media and the police. And the team is concerned about the safety of reporters. In fact, many members of the liaison team, including Mr. Cole, was hurt. He was hurt by a brick at the scene. So we will do our very best to cooperate with the media. But if the media liaison team cannot arrive at once, I hope members of the press can find a place to ensure their own safety.
Hong Kong Free Press. So press watchdog groups such as the HHAA, Foreign Correspondents Club, and the Hong Kong Press Photographers Association have expressed concern over the arrest of a photojournalist in Mongkok last night. She was arrested despite complying with police instructions to produce ID documents. What was the justification for her arrest and her detention overnight? And given that she was released this morning without charge, will the police admit that it made a mistake in arresting her and apologize? And my second question has to do with the interim injunction from last Friday. Putting aside the part about doxing, there was also a second part about, quote, intimidating, molesting, harassing, threatening, pestering, and interfering with police officers and their families. Can any of your officers define for us what these 6 terms mean and what kind of behaviors they cover? If you cannot tell us very precisely what intimidating, molesting, harassing, threatening, pestering, and interfering means, then how do you expect the general public to follow this injunction?
Okay, I'll first invite Mr. Lee to answer the second question, and I will answer your first question later.
Thank you for questions. You have mentioned about the second part of the injunction about the all the requirements for, say for example, I don't repeat it as one, but I would like to focus on the most important part of this injunction is unlawfully and willfully. That is to make this very carefully how we treat this injunction order. We just the target. The person is unlawfully and willfully, and with these two, the most important part of the injunction order, you will have no problem to explain what is the intimidating, molesting, or harassing and the threatening of something like that. So I'm not planning to go into the order into the detail about the explanation of this part, but the most important is the protection of our officers to free of some of intimidation to themselves and to their family, being being doxing and harassment afterwards for these cases. And that's what my part. Yep.
If it's just a person standing on the street shouting criticism at the police, does this fall under pestering a police officer?
Okay. Is it unlawful?
Would you have an answer to that question?
So it is not unlawful. It's no problem. So it's a very easy, no difficult or no any hidden thing for this one. Is this unlawful? It's okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, for your first questions, I would like to first mention about situation last night at around 9 p.m. yesterday. Our officers were conducting a dispersal operations in Mongkok, and saw a lady, I believe is the one we mentioned, wearing a reflective vest on the street. According to our frontline officers who handled this case, she was not wearing any press pass. The lady claimed to be a reporter to our officers. Our officers gave repeated warnings to ask her for her identity documents, but she refused to comply at the very beginning and was uncooperative. Having given repeated warning to demand her ID card in vain, our officers arrested her for obstructing police officer and failing to produce proof of identity, resisting arrest. Only after the police declared arrest, she produced her ID for checking. The lady was released on bail now, and she needs to report on police bail later. I would like to appeal to all reporters to comply with police instruction, especially during this kind of chaotic situation. We appeal for their cooperation to reduce any friction and potential conflicts. If the reporters, I would say that if she comply with our officer's demand for her identity documents at the very beginning, I believe that this incident would have been avoided.
At the beginning of the interaction, this reporter asked the police officer for the warrant card. So if you're asking her why didn't she produce identification at the beginning, then she was asking you, why didn't you produce, your officers produce identification in the beginning as well?
Let me finish my answer first. We once again appeal to reporters covering protests to wear the reflective vest that she did and their press cards at a highly visible position so as to let our officers identify them easily. Anyone who feels aggrieved by the police may make a report to the capital, and we will investigate into all this report fairly and impartially. I would like to reiterate that under normal circumstances, we, police, may not ask for both ID card and press card. But if during inquiry our officers have reasonable suspicion about the reporter's identity, they may and will ask for both ID cards and press card to verify their identities. Because indeed, in our previous operations, we have seized fake press cards as confirmed by media companies concerned. May I invite Mr. Kwong to answer about the demand for warrant card from a uniformed officer?
Yeah, actually, according to our Police General Order, when we are executing our duties, the member of the public may request us to show their warrant card. However, there are some situations that our officer may not be able to produce their warrant card, including, first of all, if the circumstances do not allow so. For example, they are busy of making the arrest, so it may not be possible for an officer who is making an arrest to show their warrant card. And also, if the request is unreasonable, I have to repeat here that at that moment, as I could see from some video clips, the officers who are handling this case are all in uniforms. So at that moment, I don't think there are reasonable suspicion for the arrested person to suspect to have any suspicion on the identity of our officer. So at that moment, our officer decided not to produce a warrant card. And I have to stress here that I think asking our officer to show their warrant card is not a reasonable excuse for not showing their identity card.
好，明一。
HKO1.
香港另一記者。
今日最後嘅兩位其中一位。
Last two questions.
第一個係想追問翻係個呼號嘅問題。
First question on operational call signs. So just now you think that there is no timetable. So what's the progress? And how many federal officers are given call sign? What is the percentage?
係咪都會 show 出嚟咧？
And will they show their call sign?
就係想問翻咧，其實琴日旺角嗰
And
邊咧
yesterday
係
in
好多嘅商鋪都
Mongkok,
中
there are a lot
咗
of the
催淚
shops
彈嘅，
that have
同
been
埋
hit
有一
by
啲
tear
就係巴
gas,
士咧啲
and
煙都攻入去
of
嘅，
the
咁
smoke
都
actually
想問
overwhelmed
翻
a lot
其實
of
呢個行
buses.
為係點樣
May
改
I
善咧？
ask how
或
he
者
improved
係
on this?
巴士咁樣攻入去，司
And
機睇
for
唔
the
到
smoke
嘢係好危
overwhelming
險
the
嘅，咁
buses
警
and the
方有冇
driver
考慮
lost
到
his
呢
sight
個問
line
題咧？
where the risky
第
would
三個問
got
題即係話
got
有傳媒
police
係睇到水
look
炮
at
車
this,
咧裏
and the
邊係
media
有
has
進
spot
聲
some of
嘅，
the
咁其實
SCMV
都有埋個距離嘅。其實你
had
哋射嘅
actually
時候，水炮車運作嘅時候
had
係
a
見到可以射到
distance. You
咩人，
actually
或者係
see
邊個物
what
體
you're
其實係好
aiming
清
at.
楚嘅。咁你想問翻咧，其實當時中咗個清真寺嘅
When
行
you
為
hit
係咪真係
the
當時解
with the
釋
water
咧？
cannon
定係
cars
其實係睇得清楚咧？係唔該。
a mosque by accident, or were actually see the mosque clearly?
咁就住個行動呼號嗰度咧，
An operational call
行
signs
動嗰邊咧，我會交俾
for the operation,
黃 Sir。咁但
I'll
係一陣間
defer
李
to
Sir 都
Mr.
想講
Wang
關於
and
即係
Mr. Lee will
便衣警
supplement
嗰
on
方
the
面嗰個進度
plainclothes
咁啊答完
officers.
之後咧，一陣間
After that, on the special crowd management vehicle, I'll defer to Mr. Wong. I will answer the second part or supplement on the second part of the question. Let me take your question first. And on the progress of rolling out call signs within the force, as long as you're part of the strength, we'll try to assign them a call sign to facilitate to locate the colleague, and we'll also improve the operational efficiency since our field commanders will know that which officers are on the front line doing what. I can't tell you what is the percentage being assigned call signs. As long as they're part of the formation, I can give them. We are trying our best to give the officers on the ground a call sign number and try to tell them to wear it as much as they can. I can't answer when to complete it because we want to enforce it ASAP. Why we did not to worry about the deadline because we already have identification numbers in place. When deploying resources to a particular location, we will know that which resources are deployed to where. So I'm not able to answer your question yet. As for the SCM, you claim that you have that why our colleagues will be affecting other places. The police are employing some measures to minimize the close contact between the frontline officers and the rioters to reduce the risk of an injury due to hand-to-hand combat and also reduce the injury suffered by protesters. How do we make sure this is effective? That when we need to use it on a group of people for smoke, I can't control that this particular 5 people will be affected while the rest of them will be unaffected. By the same token, when I inject some water in the particular area, I can't fully control the water will only aim at particular individuals. As for your question, when the police are able to aim at people or objects while affecting other places, because we have tactical constraints and also with our weapons. For the weapons to target a group of people, I believe that it will not affect only individuals but a whole group of people. Hope that you can be more understanding when while deploying weapons, we can't change the nature of these weapons. When we're affecting other areas, we will apologize to them because that's unintentional. You claim that we will affect other people, that's why we've been alerting, reminding the public when you have violent confrontations or protests and this illegal assembly, people should not attend, show up. You should not be around as an onlooker or even to support these illegal activities. Because we're deploying such weapons that will affect you, and then while we're asking why am I affected, why am I targeting the rioters, I believe the police have limited choice for effectively control and contain the chaotic situation. Does not just solely rely on the use of force by the police or the minimum necessary force, but also the public support. They should not take part any further in this lawful assembly or show up nearby so that we can manage the situation easier and for easier identification. I'll now pass on to Mr. Lee to talk about Operation Call Sign for the CIDs. So why the criminal investigators are trying to implement the call sign for them will be more difficult than the uniformed officers. For the uniformed officers, they have this formation location. Whereas for CID, we don't have such arrangements. We fully agree that our call sign would offer great assistance for identification. So please give us some time, because now we set up a good system, we have to be accurate. There's no point to come up with a system quickly, but will wrongly identify the incorrect persons. That would be irresponsible. So please give us some time. We'll roll out the operational call set as soon as possible, which will cover the CIDs. As for the second question, Mr. Wong answered part of it. So all along, we noticed in our operations that some of the shops or some of the buildings or the residents may be somewhat affected in our operations, and that's unintentional. If we notice any individuals or shops that be affected this way, we usually would send a police district rep to get in touch with them and express our apology for the inconvenience caused. As for so who chose to commit riots in the West Kowloon area? It's not the police. The police is merely responsive in enforcing the law. Very often, the rioters have deliberately picked certain areas to commit large-scale vandalism. The police will need to enforce the law when there are riots. Like in my remarks, if the police don't come out to stop these violence acts, have you really asked any other department or organization will help the public to stop this behavior? We don't want to affect innocent civilians. Who picked those areas and bring rubbish and plastic to generate thick smoke? I hope the Hong Kong public will measure by the same rule in asking to ask the writers to apologize sincerely. Last question, Reuters.
Hi, thank you. Three questions. Firstly, do you believe there's been any increase in fake or imposter journalists on the scene at protests? Has this happened since the mask ban, and what evidence is there of this? Secondly, does the early and sort of forceful police presence in Salisbury Gardens on the weekend suggest a change in police tactics, and if so, why and what are you trying to achieve? And thirdly, do you have a cumulative figure for the use of tear gas, rubber bullets, sponge grenades and beanbag rounds since mid-June?
May I invite Mr. Wong to answer the second and third question first, and I'll answer the last one.
Thank you very much. Regarding to your questions about change of police tactics, yes, definitely. This is our duty call. As the police force have to police these most difficult situations. You can remember the situation in the past 4 months developed into a very chaotic situation now. People start to arson, try to beat up each other, and try to have the vandalism because they mask themselves, they get a group of people, get the umbrella to protect them. This kind of violence cannot be tolerated by our society. For our force, we will try our best to use different tactics, which we regularly reviewed in order to come back effectively to this kind of illegal act. I'll condemn this kind of unlawful act because they damage the whole society. For the police, in the past few days, because we have the intelligence, we will adopt some more proactive approach to try to combat this kind of vandalism or this kind of illegal act. We hope that can effectively to stop and fight for a better situations in the coming future. Regarding the figures in the past few months, I haven't got the figures in hand at this moment, but I'd like to emphasize the number of TS we use, the number of bullets we use, no matter it's a beanbag or rubber round, it's all because the violence we face. We are using the minimum necessary force principle, which adopted not only in Hong Kong, but around the world. And you can see how tolerance our police force try to handle the situations. It's because we don't want to cause any unnecessary injury, and we try to resolve the problems in a more effective way. So that's my answer. Thank you.
I think you can approach newsroom for the exact number of ammunition we used. And while for your first question about fake reporters, and what you mean by fake reporters have multiple meanings. There are people with fake press pass, and people who claim to come from a media organization need to know. And we are also aware that many wearing reflective vests and holding cameras are present at protest site. They may not actually be reporters. And in our past operation, we have indeed seized fake press pass. Our frontline officers have indeed come across fake reporters. That's the situation. I cannot say the trend is increasing or not. Under normal circumstances, we'll try our best to cater to reporters' convenience and facilitate their work. But during the protest and violence incidents, as mentioned earlier in this press conference, it is indeed very difficult for our officers to distinguish genuine reporters and protesters, or protesters who disguise as reporters. And therefore, we always look at someone's actions or behavior, and we are not in position to judge what is real journalism, what is not. But we believe certain people wearing yellow reflective vests are not carrying out a professional journalism. We do not wish to see any misunderstanding between police and media due to some malpractice of those fake reporters. But I must say that we certainly do not target genuine reporter intentionally. And I would like to stress that police fully respect the right of media to report an incident in Hong Kong and your freedom to record the social unrest. Thank you.
今日記者會完畢，唔該晒。